How's it going, everyone? Kevo here. Welcome back to the channel. We're back.
Kept you waiting, huh?
Turn-based RPGs have come a long way since the 80s and 90s. Originally inspired by battle systems of tabletop RPGs, the idea was to create a way to make role-playing games easier to play and make them more widely accessible. This gave us some of the first Japanese RPGs with titles like Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest, both of which are still going strong today. American developers adopted the system as well, though it eventually fell out of style, but in Japan RPGs were, and still are, very popular, and are a large part of Japan's gaming culture. Most of the greatest turn-based RPGs of all time were developed out of Japan, by companies like Sega, Atlus, and Square Enix. But I want to ask you this, viewer. Are RPGs growing kinda stale, and do the big RPG developers kinda play it too safe? We know that Square isn't afraid to try new things with Final Fantasy, but rather than innovating within the turn-based system, they've chosen to just straight up abandon it altogether. And I think that's going a bit too far in the way of innovation, in my opinion. And I'm sure there's a few of you out there that agree. Atlus, on the other hand, has greatly improved, expanded, and innovated upon their turn-based battle system all the way since it was a wee little baby. And they still use it today, and it's great, but I've been playing Metaphor recently, and man, I'm starting to really hate how copy-paste these games feel. I mean, if I'm playing another Persona game, cool, but if you're gonna go and name it something else, it should feel different, no? You can change the setting, characters, and overall design, but I mean, for me, this game is essentially just Persona with a new coat of paint, which isn't necessarily bad. I mean, I like Persona. I was just expecting something different with this game. Some kind of unique gameplay mechanic that made it feel like it was worth playing, instead of all the other Atlus RPGs out right now. There are some small changes to the combat added that are pretty cool, but I think it's more so like a thing that's gonna stay attached to this formula going forward with other Atlus RPGs, not specific to Metaphor, so it's not like it really is, you know, unique to it, you know what I mean? We're probably going to see these same mechanics in every RPG from Atlus going forward. But still, attacking and dodging the enemies outside of combat is really fun. Before in Atlus games, it was pretty easy to get the advantage, but here it's an actual challenge. And it introduces a kind of risk-reward mechanic, since you have to be careful not to accidentally give the enemy the advantage because you get too greedy. Because these guys attack real fast, and they can catch you off guard pretty easily sometimes. You can also now control the formation of your party during battle. By putting people in the front row, they'll deal more damage with melee attacks than those in the back row, but people in the back row take less damage from enemies, and also dish out less damage. And that's about it for significant changes. I mean, there's these synthesis moves that allow you to use combination moves with your allies, but we've kind of seen this before with showtimes from Royal, and whatever they were called in Reload, so it's not that unique. Thankfully, however, there is a game that released this year that stays true to the turn-based formula while simultaneously adding its own unique flavor. Expedition 33 is the first game ever released by French developer Sandfall Interactive, and though it's still early, I think this might be our 2025 Game of the Year. In a time where video game budgets are way overblown, as an excuse for AAA developers to start charging you $70 a game just so they can hope to make a profit, developer Sandfall Interactive managed to deliver one of the most visually stunning games of 2025 for just $50. The game uses Unreal Engine 5, and the developers have openly discussed how they used a ton of pre-made assets in order to focus more on what they called hero assets. And the result is still a very unique looking game with lots of style, without unnecessarily overblowing the workload by creating their own rock and tree assets. This makes the whole made by 30 people argument sound pretty believable, but it's not actually that simple. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, this game is so good, people have started using it in the fact that it was quote unquote made by 30 people as a way to attack the current state of AAA gaming. Because it might be hard to believe, but this is a fucking indie game, and it's leagues better than what you can expect AAA developers to drop today. And listen, I'm not happy with how bloated and lazy AAA game development has become either. But to say that this game was made by only 30 people is just misleading. According to this article on Rock Paper Shotgun by Nick Rubin, shout out to you, Nick, Sandfall outsourced gameplay animations to an 8-person Korean team. And if you've played the game, you'd know the enemy and player animations are a huge part of Expedition 33's combat. We'll go over that more later, but much like Nick here, I'm left to assume that this Korean team's a large part of why the combat feels so good in the first place. So you gotta include those guys, as well as the 30 or so people who worked on the phenomenal soundtrack, which included a 9-person choir, localization teams, QA, you get the gist. It's a lot more than 30 people. And not to take anything away from Sandfall, they've still accomplished a great feat by managing to reach mainstream success with their very first title.
It's just like we've never experienced anything like it, so it is quite mind-blowing.
Surreal.
I really enjoyed this game, and while it's an indie game, I think it'll shake things up in the AAA space, and hopefully set a new standard going forward. But besides smart, cost-effective development techniques and pretty graphics, what's so special about Expedition 33 that makes it such a strong contender for Game of the Year? Expedition 33 has many strengths, one of which, of course, much like all great RPGs, is its grand narrative. The game follows the volunteers of Expedition 33 and their journey to destroy the Paintress, a godlike being responsible for an annual event called the Gomage, which Thanos snaps people away at or above a certain age, with the age in question decreasing each Gomage. The game begins on the island of Lumiere. Originally a part of the mainland, Lumiere was disconnected and thrown out into the ocean 67 years ago, when the paintress first appeared and started the first Gomage. Since then, every year the town of Lumiere assembles volunteers for an expedition into the mainland to slay the paintress before she can paint a new number. And as you can see from the title of the game, none have been successful. But this time things will be different, right? The game evokes themes of letting go of what's been lost and moving on, but it's not as simple as revenge is bad. It's very well done. Without spoiling too much, I'll say the main villain is great. His goals are selfish and inconsiderate of the rest of the world, but you can't really blame him. It's worth mentioning that most people volunteer for expeditions on their last year of life because, you know, what's the worst that could happen anyway? But in this story, two of our main characters volunteer much earlier than most people would. So there's also the question of, is it better to live a safe, sheltered life that's guaranteed to last a little longer, or is it better to just go out and see what's out there regardless of the risk? It really hit home for me, and it's a great message. No matter what could happen, what you lose, you gotta go see what's out there, out of respect for those who came before, and out of necessity for those who will come after. And that's the real purpose of each individual expedition, in my opinion. Sure, the overall goal is to defeat the paintress, but that's like near impossible. Once they realize they have no hope of defeating her, the goal becomes to leave behind as much information as possible to be found and studied by the next expedition, in hopes that the information will provide them a higher chance of survival, and maybe even help them complete their objective.
When one falls, we continue. And lay the trail for the ones who come after.
You can find notes from every expedition scattered throughout the world containing anything from stories of encounters with Gestrels, the main inhabitants of the mainland, to the final moments of a previous expedition. Sucks for them though, because we're not going to end up like them. Thanks to the Lumina Converter. Invented by the main character, Gustav, the Lumina Converter is Expedition 33's ace in the hole. Since no previous expedition had it, they think they'll have a better chance of defeating the paintress because of it. The Lumina Converter basically allows the various members of your party to turn abilities granted by Pictos into passive skills that you can equip all at once. So every character has access to 3 Picto slots. Pictos grant you passive skills, but only when you have them equipped. So what you want to do is basically equip whatever Pictos you want, and then after about 3 or 4 battles, you'll learn the Lumina or passive skill for that Picto. Then you can just equip the passive skill by itself using Lumina points, and you can keep it while freeing up a Picto slot for a new ability to learn. And I love this feature. I mean, it's exactly what I was talking about. Like, there are still ways to innovate within turn-based RPGs without having to turn it into a whole different kind of game, or just make minor tweaks to the same fucking formula like Atlas does all the time. Some believe that the Lumina Converter being what makes Expedition 33 different from the others is kind of like a meta joke by the devs about JRPG mechanics. Since normally in a JRPG, you get whatever passives are granted to you by an accessory or clothing item you have equipped, and once you take it off, you lose that ability, and it kind of sucks. It'd be cool if there was a way to actually keep those abilities while still changing onto better armor. I don't know if the thing about it being a joke is true, but I mean, it makes sense. Speaking of things that just make sense, let's talk about gameplay. If you've played RPGs like Paper Mario or Sea of Stars, you know that they have this mechanic where you can press a button at the right time during your attack, and you'll get extra hits for more damage. And when you're defending, you can press a button at the right time to deflect or parry an attack. Expedition 33 takes this idea and dials it up to 1,000. You have the ability to dodge enemy attacks as well as parry them, the parry option resulting in a counter attack for huge damage if you can successfully parry every hit. And some of these boss attacks can go on for a fucking while. But once you get the hang of it, this is some of the most fun you can have in the game. And reading an opponent on your first try perfectly is so satisfying.
Now I understand your need. Now I understand what it do. Now I understand what it brings out.
Shout out to those 8 Korean dudes. But that's not all on the defensive side. You also have attacks that you need to jump over, signified by this little icon, and gradient attacks, which turn the screen like black and white for a moment and are meant to kind of confuse you as to when you're supposed to parry. All these kinds of attacks are mixed in perfectly throughout your journey to constantly keep you on your toes. Even when you may get a little tired of parrying and dodging, enemies may throw one of the other kinds of attacks out at you and keep you guessing. On the offensive side of combat, the whole QTE concept carries over to your basic attacks and skills of each party member. Pressing the button on screen at the right time will result in increased damage for your attacks. Additionally, every character has a unique gimmick specific to them that allows them to deal more damage or have increased defense or improve healing, just to name a few. Gustav, for example, that device that he created, the Lumina Converter, it's implanted into his prosthetic arm and you can charge it during battle. By landing successful strikes on your opponents, you gain charges, and when you get to 10, you can use the overcharge ability to unleash massive damage on your foes. You can use it before you get to 10, but you want to wait till it gets to 10 so you can do the most damage, obviously. That's one of the more simple ones, but they get a lot more interesting. Mael has the stance system, which allows her to access 3 different stances, not counting stanceless, which is pretty much self-explanatory. The defense stance reduces incoming damage and grants additional AP on successful parries and dodges. The offensive stance increases your damage output, but also increases your damage taken. And the virtuose stance increases your damage by 200%, but you need specific skills in order to enter it. I stopped using her as much in the later sections of the game, but this system made Mael one of my favorite characters to play in the early game. It was really fun just strategizing how to most quickly get back into virtuose stance and making sure that you're in defensive stance during the enemy turn. There's also Lune, the kind of healer magic build of the party. She can use a number of elemental spells that each generate a stain. These stains can be consumed to deal additional damage or even boost healing. Ciel has access to the Foretell system, which makes her basic attack as well as some of her skills apply Foretell when hitting an enemy. Think of them like little sticky bomb cards. You can apply up to 10 on an enemy, and then you use a skill to consume them and deal massive damage. You can consume them whenever you want, but just like Gustav, it's better to get a full deck in before consuming. An extension of the Foretell system is the Twilight mechanic. Each of Ciel's skills are assigned light or dark, as you can see by these icons. Using one of the skills will generate either a sun or a moon card. Once you get one of each, Ciel enters Twilight mode, increasing her damage by 50%, but also doubling the amount of Foretell you can apply on an enemy, going from 10 to 20. Can you guess who Best Girl is? She is so fucking busted, dude. Once I got the hang of her gimmick, I stopped relying on Mael for damage as much, and eventually she got kicked out of the rotation altogether. But yeah, these little mechanics are intended to make each character fun and interesting to play, and it does just that. Sure, some characters I use more than others, and some fell out of favor completely, but each new party member is so genuinely unique from the rest, you have to at least try them just to see what they introduce. And that's something that's really lacking in Metaphor. Every party member can use whatever archetype and change affinities on the fly. It makes everyone feel less unique and impactful to the team. I mean, even in Persona, only the player has the ability to change multiple personas. Your party members unlock skills specific to their build, and it made it so eventually you wouldn't have to worry about having a persona equipped on you to cover that specific weakness because one of your party members are doing it. Anyway, back to Expedition 33. The game doesn't use the traditional MP system for skills. You know how typically in an RPG, using a skill would use mana points, and managing these mana points effectively so that you don't run out during a dungeon crawl is one of the key aspects of games like Persona or Pokemon. Expedition 33 instead uses an AP system that rewards you with more AP points to spend on skills the better you do in combat. Parries and perfect dodging will quickly max out your AP gauge. And some skills require a lot of AP, so you either have to purposely avoid using skills so you can conserve the AP to use those better skills, or get fucking good. When you're outside of combat, your AP ceases to exist. While I like this mechanic, I'm not sure I necessarily prefer it over having just an MP bar, since you lose certain abilities that are essential to RPGs, like using skills to heal party members outside of combat. The game remedies this by giving you what's called a Chroma Elixir, a one-use item that fully heals your party that can be replenished as save points. I found this pretty cool too. All the save points are flags placed by previous expeditions. You get to see exactly how far they got. Also, I didn't know this until I began researching for this video, but you can actually upgrade the Chroma Elixir so that you can use it multiple times before you need to replenish it again. I really wish I would have known this when I was playing the game, because I had one the entire time. I've said it already, but this game is jaw-dropping. Not only from a graphical standpoint, but also in its visual style. Mixing dark fantasy with French romanticism, the game's visuals are inspired by, I'm gonna butcher this, La Belle Époque, which is French for the beautiful era. It was a period of French history that began after the Franco-Prussian War in 1871 and ended with the outbreak of World War I in 1914. The period was characterized by its optimism, enlightenment, romanticism, regional peace, economic prosperity, and technological, scientific, and cultural innovations. It was during this era that the arts of France flourished, and numerous masterpieces of literature, music, and visual art gained extensive recognition. Or at least that's what it says on Wikipedia, which is where I got all that information from. But I think you can see the influence of this highlighted mostly in the design of Lumiere. And there's a lot to see in Expedition 33 outside of just biblically accurate French architecture. Once you get to the mainland, you get sprawling forests, beautiful underwater caves, barren battlegrounds, and awe-inspiring ancient ruins. And we can't forget the very charming, anciently mechanical architecture of the Gestural Village. All the individual levels are beautiful, but I also had fun just running around the overworld and checking out all there was to see. There's many merchants that you can find in the overworld, and if you beat them in a fight, you can gain access to their secret stock, so that's always fun to do. It's also just really cool that it's this detailed and you can run around it in like real time. It's not just like a flat map that you you know, click on a spot and then you go there. And just like any other RPG, you can expect to find plenty of items to help you on your journey, and also cool secret bosses to challenge in the overworld. Extra costumes are very easy to come by, and not easy to come by as in you don't even have to open the game, just throw money at the problem and watch it fade away. No, I mean you can actually acquire costumes for your party members by simply exploring the game. It's a fascinating concept, really. Honestly, whoever came up with it, good job. I think I'm about ready to close out this video, but let's see, what else is there to glaze? Oh man, the music's great. I've already added a few tracks to my Spotify, and when they come on, it brings me right back to where I was when I heard it in game. There's tracks that'll get your blood pumping, tracks that'll bring you to tears, and whatever Monoko's track is. I swear to God, dude, if this game actually loses Game of the Year to Silly Monkey Game, it better at least win Best Soundtrack, because holy shit, man, this OST is a feat in and of itself. All in all, I would say without a shadow of a doubt, Expedition 33 is worth every penny. You can expect to get around 30 hours of enjoyment out of this game, and double that if you go for 100%. Meanwhile, I'm out here paying $70 for Space Marine 2 with 6 campaign missions. Like, what the fuck? If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, and if you want to share your thoughts on Expedition 33, or your thoughts on my thoughts about Expedition 33, be sure to sound off in the comments. Also, I apologize if some of the footage looks kind of choppy. I was in between two computers when I was making this video, and the one I had before was severely underpowered compared to this one, so the footage I have from that old computer might look a little weird, but at least now I have a good computer, so I'll actually be able to play some more modern games and talk about them for you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.